Hello, this is your Q&A follow-up to the masterclass. As promised, I am answering all your questions one by one, the ones that we didn't get a chance to get to on the masterclass. And so here I have my laptop in front of me and I'll be reading your questions. Emmanuel asks, my question is something you're talking about in your book, but I still cannot figure out. I am not able to feel the emotion. And what I mean is when something comes up, I try to accept it and let it run through, but after a few seconds, the motion disappears. After that, it may appear just before I go to sleep where I don't have the energy, focus to let it run through its cycle, or before a presentation at work where I should be focusing on what I'm saying rather than the emotion. Okay, this is very common. So what's happening is that when we are tired or sick, and for our menstrual cycles for women, we'll notice that our normal defenses, our normal guards are sort of quieter. They fall away, they melt away. The energy that we usually put into maybe not feeling our emotions, being able to push through, all of a sudden we lose that energy before bed, when we're sick, etc. So this is really great indication because it's showing you that there's actually a lot underneath the surface that is there for you to process. And what I would suggest is there's so many reasons, as I mentioned in the book, and so many more I didn't mention in the book, for why it's very challenging for us to feel our emotions. We're really not conditioned to go there. It really doesn't feel safe for our bodies to go there. And what I believe is that we are most powerful, most in our emotional intelligence, most in our self-awareness when we have a body that feels safe feeling the full range of emotions. And so I would recommend that the next time that you feel an emotion, even if it's at nighttime before you go to bed, pick, an evening where you can actually maybe do this because you don't have to get up as early in the morning, and let yourself go there. I actually love when my clients are tired. I love when they're not feeling well for this kind of work because all their normal defenses are out the window and they're raw and they're ripe and ready to feel things that maybe they can block when they have too much energy, or their health and their immune system is able to fight, resist feeling their emotions. I'm always like, great, this is a huge opportunity. I'm glad you called me when you're tired. And so in that state, first tell yourself, I'm safe to feel this. I give myself full permission to go here. And even this affirmation of, I'm ready to see the truth. I'm ready to feel it all. I know I can handle it. There's nothing from my past that I'm unwilling to see. This is a very powerful prayer, essentially, as it starts to give our body, our nervous system, this feeling of like, okay, you're ready. And it has to be true. It needs to feel in your body that I do feel safe, that I do feel like I can go here. As I mentioned in the book, and I'll repeat here, if you notice that even when you're telling yourself you feel safe, there's still panic and fear in your system, then I highly recommend hiring a professional to titrate this experience with, because what often happens when clients find me is that they have certain memories that are repressed or dissociated, and they know that something happened, but they can't quite remember it. And it's usually the body's way of protecting you from going to places and feeling things and remembering things that maybe your body isn't yet ready to handle. So remember, trauma is not necessarily capital T trauma of like violence and abuse and something that was clearly, the whole world would characterize as traumatic. Trauma is just any time we experience something that our bodies, our emotional intelligence at the time doesn't have the capacity to feel and process, which is often when we're children, or if there's PTSD or there's something specific that was just too overwhelming for the nervous system to handle and process and release, then it gets stored and frozen in the body, and that's what trauma ends up being held in our body. So it could be lowercase t trauma, which is just anything that was too overwhelming to process in the moment of the emotion. This could be hearing really bad news as a child. Maybe your parents split up and it was shocking for you. Maybe it was the loss of a relative. Maybe it was heartbreak, your first breakup, your first rejection, maybe being bullied in school. These are all moments that we're not equipped to handle as children. And this isn't meant to mention like if there's any intense emotional or physical abuse on the body. So First, create safety. Tell your body that I'm safe to go here. And remember, on the masterclass, I said it's key to remember that this is a relationship you're cultivating with your inner child, because it's actually your inner child that is holding and remembering and freezing this stack of unprocessed emotion in our body. And so we really want to make sure that we're inviting and welcoming this inner child to come forward, and we're not pushing, prodding, convincing, pushing beyond their timing and their readiness to go to places their child is not ready to go to. And so just as a very compassionate mother or father would say, like, it's okay, like, I'm here for you on your own timing. I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. I got you. You know, and just like really feel like I can feel my whole body and system gets very grounded when I say that. And so feel what saying that to yourself does for your body. I'm saying this is a little bit longer as an answer because I noticed a lot of questions came in that were related to feeling your emotions, such as, this one, I've repressed mine. Raymond says, I've repressed mine for years. I'm having a very difficult time with it, and I'm resisting a lot just doing it. Even the idea of doing it puts me in tension. Yeah. So what I'm hearing there is that for whatever reason, whether it's a repressed memory or pain or disappointment, or maybe there's actual trauma underneath this, or it's just really heavy conditioning, right? As a man or woman, from your parent being told, like, don't cry, stop, you know, or especially as a boy, perhaps, like, men don't cry, or stop it, like, toughen up, right? There's a lot of shame related to expressing our sadness. And so if you notice that it's hard to feel your emotions, it just means that there's very heavy programming at the very least, because everyone goes through that. And then on the extreme end, there could be capital T trauma on the other end of it. And everything in between that is going to be hard to feel our emotions. So the more safety we can create in our systems, the easier it will be to go there. And I know that the masculine energy is often like this fixing energy, like, just tell me how to do it so I can do it once and for all. Like, just give me the technique and let me get it done. Let me check it off that I felt my emotion. But that's just not the process of feeling our emotions. It's really not fixing. It's about healing. Very different energy. And so the healing process is trusting its own timing, trusting that whatever you can feel in this moment will come up. The memory, as much as you can handle it, will come up. The sensation, as much as your body feels safe to feel it, will come up. And the more gentle you are, the slower you are at the beginning of building that trust with your younger self, with your inner child, the faster it's going to be to process this emotion. And so really remember that. And the other thing that I would say is there's a free resource on my website under Bending Reality. So if you go to www.victoriason.me and click on Bending Reality, you can sign up to get all the free chapter resources from Bending Reality. And one of them is a alchemy breathwork. And I highly recommend breathwork for all of us, period, especially those of us who find feeling our emotions challenging, because it really comes at twofold. One, it is relaxing your nervous system through the breath work, so you're moving energy through breath and sound. And then the other thing is that when you get yourself to this altered state through the breath work, I notice that everything comes out. It's almost like the body doesn't lie, the body can't hold it back. It's your mind goes offline and the body just releases and moans, groans, tears, screaming. It's like you can feel the buildup in your system. And it's one of the almost 100% hit rate for all of my clients when they feel this breath work. They always have an emotional breakthrough and feel their emotions through this breath work. If the first couple times you do it, you notice just physical sensations of tingling, tightening, freezing of the body, just know that this is your nervous system calibrating to unwind and unfold. And if you keep doing the breath work a couple more times, your nervous system will open and expand enough that emotions will flow through. So try the breath work. The other chapter resource that is free is I call it Metabolize Your Emotions as the audio guide, and it's an aspectus evolution technique where you can sit with where the sensation is held in the body. So for instance, if it's in my belly, then I would notice, okay, I would have a conversation, a dialogue. This is very ancient Tibetan practice called feeding the demon, which is actually able to acknowledge, talk to, and have a dialogue with this emotion, and then alchemize it so that you elevate it into expansion. So it's a way of acknowledging and feeling through the contraction straight into bliss, straight into expansion. So those are 2 free techniques that you can find on my website if you want support in feeling your emotions. All right, Sharon asks, I'm coming up on a year of being a newly licensed real estate agent. I made the shift last year and I can't believe how fast time flew by. I've been networking as much as I can, keeping active on social media, and also just keeping myself out there. I've had 1 sale and a few small projects, which I'm grateful for. It's just very quiet and I currently have no active clients. I've planted seeds with potential clients and will continue to keep the faith. It does get discouraging at times not being working and earning. I do have trust, and now after reading this book, I feel I have the tools to get me through. I guess I really don't have a question, but would just love to hear any words of wisdom for someone who truly wants to work and earn, but is still in the quiet phase. All right, Sharon, we did have a little bit of back and forth for me to clarify what you're feeling, if there were any emotional blocks around this process for you. So what I will say is that something we talk about in the Bending Reality course is how to create this formula of alignment around what it is you're trying to do. So alignment would mean getting your thoughts, feelings, and actions in alignment with expansion. And so Sharon, I would ask you to write down every thought that you have around your job, being a licensed real estate agent. Every thought, like it's hard, clients are hard to come by, it's unsteady income, every thought that you have, both positive and negative thoughts, I want you to write them all down just to get super transparent. And then I want you to write out all your emotions currently. So you said discouraged, trying to keep faith, but feeling maybe a little bit guilt that you could be doing more, a little confusion, wondering like, what else can I do? So feel through what the emotions are that are coming up for you. And then what the current actions are. So it sounds like you're networking, you're putting yourself out there. What other actions would you characterize that you're taking currently? After I get really clear on like, what are my thoughts, feelings, and actions right now, I go through each category and I say, okay, which thoughts actually, when I think them, make me feel contractive? So am I having thoughts like, if I make more money, it's going to take more of my time. If I work harder, it's going to be at the sacrifice of my family. It's hard and unsteady income. For some reason, maybe I'm just too new at this job. I'm too much of a novice. I'm inexperienced. I don't have enough experience yet. Maybe that's why I'm not getting jobs, right? So start to excavate what are all the thoughts that you're having that are actually contractive and they make you feel that way when you think the thought. Next, I would look at the emotions category and do the same thing, identify, highlight the contractive feelings. And then lastly, the actions. Think about what actions might sound like. So I'm kind of, maybe just distracting myself. Maybe I've given up on social media, or I stopped doing X, or I stopped doing Y, or I'm afraid to do this. Like notice what kind of actions you may not be taking or playing small in as a result of where your current thoughts and feelings are. And so what I would highly recommend everyone do, this is such a perfect formula for anything that you're doing in life, is clean up all the contractive thoughts, feelings, and actions. So what that looks like is what's an incrementally more expansive thought than the one I currently have. So if my thought right now is I'm a novice at this, I'm just a beginner, and that's just the nature of being new to this job, is I'm not going to have clients. Okay, well, I don't like that thought. What's a better thought that I want to have? What's a thought that creates more expansion in my body when I think it? Okay, maybe it's hard to go from I'm a novice to I'm experienced and I'm so great at this, because it would be a 180 and your system would probably call bullshit on such a 180 shift. So then what's something slightly incremental? What's like a step up, right? So maybe a step up from I'm a novice and that's why I'm not getting new clients is, well, I have had one sale and I noticed that the thing that I'm really good at is developing relationships. Like I have seeded a lot of potential clients. And so even though I'm new, I really trust and lean into my relationship development abilities. Like I'm so good at business development. I'm so good with people. I'm so good at being thoughtful and following up and remembering what it is that people really want and what they're looking for, and that special touch of intentional, thoughtful, deliberate, like I understand you and I understand what you're looking for, and I'm dedicated to creating your dream home or finding your dream home, right? So what are some of these things that are true for you that you can start to tell yourself that neutralize and then offset into expansion this original contractive thought of I'm a novice and maybe that's why I'm not getting new clients. So I would pick every thought that you have and do this with it incrementally. What's a step up? What's a slightly more expansive feeling thought than the one that I'm currently stuck at? And I would also do that for emotions. And then you'll find that once you do that, it's like a formula where it's thoughts plus feelings plus actions now equals like a completely different outcome. So once you do that, you'll notice that your actions are bolder. You're going to have new ideas, new inspiration. You're probably going to double down on what's working versus focusing on maybe things that aren't returning much for you right now. So this is what I would recommend. And thoughts, feelings, and actions. This is really the key to every strategy. If you can get your thoughts, feelings, and actions in alignment, that is the energetic alignment of expansion that makes strategies work. That's why I believe the same strategies might work for some people and not other people. And that's also why sometimes you may try the same strategy in this point of time and it doesn't lead to the results that you want. And then when you actually get into a better headspace, a better energetic space, more an expansive state, you try the same strategy and it works for you. It's because you want to get your thoughts, feelings, and actions in alignment. Ryan asks, how do you identify and heal the parts of me that get to be seen, heard, and magnified by me not getting what I want? Okay, so again, when I hear this question, I hear a younger self. So this would be your inner child, your little boy who, for whatever reason, felt afraid of success, afraid of being seen, afraid of being heard, afraid of making it, getting what he wants, right? And so really tuning in and learning like why, what may happen, there could be this sense of instability that the other shoe may drop, which is why he feels this way. And the solution I actually recommended you when I emailed you back, Ryan, was that I suggested that you write out the affirmation, almost like, when you were a kid and you got in trouble and you had to write standards of like, I promise I won't pick on Billy anymore. It's like my affirmation could be, I am ready to be seen. I am ready to be successful. I am becoming a successful, wealthy man, whatever it is, whatever's the affirmation is that you want. Write that down about 30 times. That's how much line paper usually is, right? So write it down about 30 times. And every time you notice a resistance pop up of but I don't know how, but it's not safe. Maybe I'm going to get bullied. Maybe people aren't going to like me anymore. I can't outdo my dad. I can't make more money than my parents did. Whatever resistances you come up from your subconscious, flip the page over and write those down. So you'll notice yourself flipping back and forth. So when you got the resistances down, flip the page back and continue writing out the standards of your affirmation. And this, again, is really great for anybody, is when you're ever trying to understand what is getting in my way, I don't understand. I conceptually understand it. I think I'm behind it. I think I feel expansive about it, but there's something that's blocking me. Write the affirmation of whatever it is, I'm wealthy, I'm successful, I'm finding the love of my life, I'm creating the life of my dreams, I'm creating a lifestyle, a life that takes my breath away, whatever it is that you're holding as your vision for yourself and your health and your relationships at work with your money goals, write that out. And then every time you hear but what if, but did you think of that? Oh no, but any buts, any resistances, any blocks, any subconscious ping of but you don't know how to do that, but you've never seen anyone do that. How do you know it's possible? Do you have what it takes? Any of that comes up, flip the page and capture all of that, because you're going to do my answer to the prior question, which is now that you've captured every resistance, you're going to go and shift, alchemize each one, transmute each one by saying, okay, this thought of, I don't know how to do it. What is one step up, one incremental, right? You're not going to jump to, I know how to do it, because that's a lie, right? You're going to jump to, well, a lot of things in my life, I didn't know how to do them until I did them. That's true. Okay, that passes my own bullshit detector. What else is true? Well, I'm actually pretty good at figuring things out, and I know how to, ask people. I can connect to my network. I can, read maybe some experts on this topic. I can look for a mentor, So you're going to go through each of these resistances until they feel expansive in your body, right? So ultimately what happens is that Many of us go through life not pushing back or questioning the thoughts that create contraction in our being, right? So we're like thinking about like someone's playing your song at the karaoke bar and you're like, oh my God, that's my song. I totally want to go sing it. And then immediately this thought comes in of like, you can't sing, or like, maybe you should drink more before you're ready for that. Or like, oh, but that, you have a crush on that person in the room and you're going to totally embarrass yourself. And then you're like, okay, sure. And then you sit back down, or you like never even get up, right? It's like the few second window between the idea and then you blocking yourself from actually standing up, going on the dance floor, standing up, grabbing the mic, standing up, saying yes to that project at work, or speaking up at the table, right? Sometimes when there's an opportunity to say like, okay, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have anything to add? You have that brilliant idea, but you're like, maybe it's not brilliant, so I'm just not going to say anything, right? Most of us allow those contractive thoughts to just land and block us in our life, in our bodies. And what I'm inviting you to do is to not let it end there, not let it land in your body as a block, as a limitation, as a feeling of contraction, but to immediately be like, well, I love singing. Well, I don't care. Well, like to talk back to it, to play with pushing back and questioning it. And even if you can poke it a little bit to see where it might not be true, that is going to make it unstable enough that that thought will no longer be powerful and having power over you anymore, right? So if the thought is something like, I need to know how before I can take action. Maybe it's hard to believe that you could figure out the how, but could you hold the possibility of maybe that's not true? What if it's not true that I have to know how before I take action? Already, it's like I made that thought or belief wobbly. And so this is what I'm asking you to play with, okay? The next question is from Ricky, and Ricky asks, I would love your thoughts on maintaining expansion throughout the day. After practicing this for years, I think I'm pretty good at entering into expansion when needed, especially to make decisions or when creating for my businesses. But I would love to work on a maintained felt sense of expansion throughout the day. Okay, this is a great question, and I would say it's a journey. It's a journey of calibrating your nervous system to a new default state. And I would first ask you to trust that already your nervous system is stabilizing expansion more than it has yesterday, more than it had last week, more than it had last month, absolutely more than it did last year, before, etc. So I think one of the things that can get us tripped up is when we don't acknowledge the fact that every day we're already more expansive. Every day we're feeling better. Every day, we're getting wiser, we're growing, like we're evolving. Like every single day I'm becoming a better version of myself. And when you can hold that that's the truth, then you're not so caught up in like, well, I have to spend 100% of my time in expansion, because you trust that this is a journey over a lifetime, and that already today you are embodying expansion way more than last week, last month, last quarter, last year. And so this is the first thing I would just recommend everyone hold, because if you don't identify and celebrate and acknowledge and feel really absolutely amazing about yourself for getting here, there's no amount of going up from here that's going to make you feel better if you can't acknowledge how far you've already come. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say, and that I say throughout the book, is to spend as much time as you can doing what's a 10 for you. So I've designed my life, my lifestyle, my calendar, my clients, my work, everything feels expansive. So for instance, I have 2 huskies that I absolutely love. Every time I look at them, my heart melts. Every time I take them out for a walk, I'm so happy to be out walking in nature, hiking, playing and seeing other dogs being adorable. Like everything about them makes me so happy. Maybe except picking up poop is not super expensive. But aside from that, it's like I love my dogs and they light me up, and I'm so happy that I have them. I love to dance. If you're on my Instagram, you will see that I absolutely love ballroom dancing, Latin. I love salsa. I love everything about dance. And I actually dance all sorts of styles. And I still believe till this day, there may not be anything else that lights me up as much as dancing does. It's completely a 10 for me. So that means that I make time to dance at least weekly. And sometimes that's just turning on the music at home and getting silly. or even just sometimes dancing alone by myself and just moving my own body absolutely alone in the dark sometimes. And that makes me really happy. So it is, how do you design your life and your schedule and everything to make sure that you're baking it in to your days? And I believe the more time you can spend, intentionally designing your days this way, the easier it becomes that this is your default state and you don't have to do anything extra to get yourself to a place of expansion. I have a beautiful partnership with James, and like everything that we do together, it doesn't even matter what we're doing. If we're running errands, it's like, I'm always so happy. He's hilarious. I'm always laughing. I'm laughing to the point where like, the kind of laughter where you're crying and you're hurting and you can't even breathe, that kind of laughter. Like that's a very common occurrence in our relationship where I'm laughing so hard I think I'm gonna die. And I have to tell him like, stop. I really can't take it anymore. Like you have to stop, right? So like that's what I create in my life intentionally. I cultivate, I create space in our relationship for those moments to happen. So we have date nights, we have intimacy hours. These are things I can go into on another live sometimes, but there's so much that we can do, right? I really advise that you don't prioritize your calendar, but you schedule in your priorities, right? That you, many times people look at their calendar and then they feel back to back busy, but you forget that there's actually, the calendar is like the most underutilized coaching tool, which is you get to schedule in and put into your calendar all the space, all the time, all the activities, things like date night, things like Pilates, yoga, breath work, things like coaching, sitting here and getting to do a live with you all, right? You get to schedule in your priorities so that most of your day is in this flow state of expansion. I will say that again, it's a journey. Like when I was in finance, like it was limited, right? There was very little I can do within the limitations of having an employer, in terms of my schedule. As soon as I became my own entrepreneur, it became so much easier to run my own schedule. But I would say that I was dancing when I worked in venture capital. So even when I worked in finance, I was making time to dance. Even when I worked in finance, I made time to have dinner with my girlfriends. There were certain things that I knew would put me into that state. I've had my, at least one of my dogs for the last 15 years of my life. I got him in college. Talk about priorities, right? Like I moved off campus at the age of 20, and my first thing I did before I got furniture for my off-campus place was I got a husky. So there are ways to prioritize even when it doesn't make sense to, like I don't know what I was thinking at that age in college getting a dog, but here we are. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, I'm gonna get to the next one. Dora asks, how can I step into more of my feminine energy or heal the wounds of my feminine energy? Also, how do I step into my feminine energy while still setting boundaries for my kids? This is a really beautiful question, Dora. This is absolutely what my Alchemy Journey program is about. It will be hard to give you an answer that will actually allow you to step into it, but what I will say is first to notice all the places that you may be putting the masculine energy on a pedestal. So if you look at my Instagram, I actually have a post on Women's Day where I write out all the things that our society tends to value that shows that we still value more masculine qualities than feminine qualities. So you can run through that list and say, okay, do I do that? Do I do that? Do I do that? And then based on that, you can tell yourself, oh, wow, like these are all the places that I have been honoring the masculine over the feminine, thinking it's superior. And that's our programming. It is our conditioning. So many of the women who find my work are very high achieving and have really given up and disconnected from their feminine essence and played into their masculine energy to compete, to win, to move up the ladder, right? At their corporate jobs and finance and tech and entrepreneurship. Like there's so many powerful women who have believed that they had to play down their feminine qualities and play into their masculine traits in order to get ahead. So you're absolutely not alone if you currently are valuing masculine traits over feminine energy. And I would say the things that are most feminine, if I had one word to capture the feminine energy and something that you can do today, right now, is receive. Receiving is a feminine energy at its essence. So whether that's receiving a compliment, right? So someone says, I love your dress. Are you saying like, oh, this old thing? Or are you saying like, oh, I love your dress? Or you look amazing too. Like, are you not actually able to just receive, Do you have to immediately kind of deflect the compliment or say something back? Can you receive someone treating you for lunch? Can you receive a present, a gift, and just say like, wow, thank you? When you get a compliment, can you say thank you? When you're in your romantic partnership, are you busy doing things for them, caretaking, taking care of them, showing your love by doing for them? Or are you able to actually lean back and receive from your partner? Can you receive their love and affection, maybe their time and attention, they're listening to you? Or are you actually the one who's wanting to fix everything for them, take care of them, cater to their needs, ask them what they want, give to them? So giving is actually more of a masculine energy. I know that oftentimes we think that the mothering energy is a feminine energy, but the mothering energy is more of a protection energy, kind of like a fierce mama bear. So mothering energy, I would not say is it's one dimension of the feminine, but it's actually the giving energy that we tend to associate with being a woman, but actually it's receiving versus giving that is us in our essence. And so that is one thing I will ask you to start paying attention to, is how well do you receive? How well do you let in? How well, how much time can you take off for vacation before you feel guilty for it? How much time off doing things for you can you buy yourself a gift that's just for you versus for your partner, for your children? Just notice the places in which you feel worthy to receive, and that's going to help you heal some of the feminine wounding that may be there currently. And then how do I set boundaries with my kids? Yeah, so I believe that the masculine and feminine are equally valued in my eyes. So I am an embodiment of very balanced masculine and feminine. At least today, my current kind of energetic makeup is quite balanced between the two. And so for me, a feminine energy can flourish, can thrive, can flow when there's a clear container, clear boundaries, clear structure, clear calendar, right? So for me, because my partner is so much the rock and the structure, and he takes care of things, there's an element of I get to just be in my flow oftentimes because he's sort of taking care of the kind of provide and protect energy. That's really what I think the feminine requires, the riverbed, to feel like the river can flow. And so I would say that with your kids, it is important to set boundaries. I've actually seen that kids are happier when there's clear boundaries. There's actually a study done that when kids have a fence around their house, they will play up until the fence. Whereas when there's no fence around the yard, the kids will play very close to the house because they just don't know how safe it is, how much they can venture out before it's dangerous. And so kids actually want to know, what are my boundaries? What is a no? So they're not mutually exclusive. I wouldn't say the feminine energy is no boundaries. I would say the feminine energy actually thrives when it knows where the boundaries are. So to me, the reason why I honor both the masculine and feminine because of this is because I think boundaries are very healthy for every relationship, whether it's with your kids or your partner or your friendships or your clients, whatever business you're in, boundaries are super important. And by setting the boundary, it's this is my word, this is my law, this is my contract, this is my agreement, and we honor it, right? And there's this sense of I know where the edges are. I feel held. I know where the boundaries are. I know I can play and explore up until here, and I still feel held by a container. That feels really good and safe. And so absolutely set boundaries and know that those are not mutually exclusive. Larry asks, you talked about your many years of stress as a kid and more intense stress during your internship. You obviously got to a point where you saw that your lifestyle wasn't sustainable. Your life could have gone in many directions at that point. What was the catalyst that sent you down the particular road toward manifestation? Yeah, I would say that, as with everything, I believe we're given so many opportunities to have our reality check. I don't think that if you miss the sign today, you miss the sign tomorrow, you're screwed and your life is going to go down a different trajectory. I think we are given infinite opportunities. There are as many ways to succeed as there are to fail, right? And sometimes we get caught up in thinking oh, I need to find that one thing because that one thing is my path to success. And if I miss it, my life is going to be messed up. My life's not going to work out if I miss it. It's just not true. And so for me personally, I would say that summer, I didn't even realize it that summer. That wasn't my wake-up call. I wish that at age 20, I figured it out that my lifestyle wasn't sustainable and that I stopped pursuing finance jobs, and I found my passion and I started coaching. I wish that was my story. Actually, I don't wish it. I just mean that that would have been nice. It would have been simple. It would have been easier if that was my wake-up call. But I just gave that as an example because, that's so good to know, right? That that should have been loud enough to know that summer, something's not sustainable here. Something's breaking. This isn't it. This can't be life. But it didn't hit me. I didn't get that lesson then. So I actually remembering crying my last week of my internship, feeling so miserable for so many reasons that are good for another story time. And I didn't get the job. I didn't get the job at the end of the internship. And I remember feeling like I failed. I'm a huge disappointment. I can't believe I spent my summer this way. So many things I hated about this experience, but I pushed through and it didn't turn into anything. I was feeling rejected. I was feeling not good enough. I was feeling not smart enough. I was feeling all the things that happen when you don't get a goal, when you don't succeed at something that you put your heart and soul into. But I'm sure all of you could tell me well, that was a blessing in disguise. Aren't you so glad you didn't get that job? Or your life would have been so different if you decided to actually go work at Goldman instead, right? So it's so easy. This is partly why I think it's so easy for me to trust. And I hope that this is a reminder for all of you, because when I look back on my life, anything that did not work out, a relationship, a job, an internship, a project, an assignment, whatever it is, do I wish it did? No, I don't. When I look back on the dots, right? Or the puzzle pieces, or the stepping stones, I realized it had to go the way it went. I couldn't imagine it going any other way. I'm not sure I would have, zigged this way if I got that. And I'm not sure I would have turned left if that happened. There are so many things that I really believe at the time feel like disappointments, that feel like heartbreak, that feel like moments of questioning our self-esteem and our self-worth because of the meaning we're making of that situation, that I don't do that anymore as an adult. In my current life, when something doesn't feel good, I don't go well, everything else is happening for me except this thing. This can't be good. This cannot be happening for me. I remember that every time I've not gotten what I wanted in the past, it's always worked out better. And there's even been some times where I thought I got what I wanted and it didn't turn out to be what I actually wanted, right? So there's so much trust in the learning and the fact that this has been true up until this point that I can't imagine why it wouldn't continue to be true, right? I think that this is super important to consider, that there wasn't one moment and we're not given one chance. For me, to answer your question fully, I didn't come to this work specifically until I accidentally landed on a life coach, because I was looking for a speaking coach. I was looking for someone to help with my presentation skills. And I asked all my consulting friends at McKinsey, BCG, Bain, if they had a speaking coach, because they give presentations to clients, Fortune 500s every week. And in that process of asking my network for for a speaking coach, I got the response, I don't have a speaking coach, but I have a life coach. And that was the first time I'd ever heard of a life coach. That was 10 years ago. And the reason my life really changed was the things I brought to that coaching session were a little bit career, but they were mostly relationship. I noticed, and this is probably true for a lot of people, that my deepest programming from my family system was showing up most intensely in my romantic partnership. So in some ways, the wiring I had around performing, achieving, being perfect, proving myself, pleasing others, that kind of programming served me well, because I was able to succeed, because a lot of the drivers, the motivations made me high functioning as far as my colleagues in the company that I was in, going to Yale and Harvard. This was just the operating system of all of us. So it wasn't clear to me from my career that I needed help, but it was absolutely clear to me that I needed help when it came to my romantic partnerships, because that is a place where the programming and the wounding and the low self-esteem and the letdown and the prior disappointments and the wounding around the masculine and all of these things were showing up in my romantic partnership. And so if I had to pinpoint the moment that I realized I needed to get help, it was really how devastating my romantic partnerships were, and how just it was clear, it was a pattern. There was an absolute pattern. It wasn't a one-off thing. It was a clear pattern that I ended up owning and taking responsibility for healing. What in me was creating this pattern and co-creating it over and over again. So that was the moment for me. Amanda asks, do you have any advice on dealing with anxiety, specifically health anxiety? I recently had a health scare, and now I find myself focusing on every little symptom or feeling I have in my body. Yeah, Amanda, there's a trauma here. So I actually have a trauma release technique that I use with my clients who have anxiety attacks or have trauma, or capital T or lower T trauma. Because what I'm hearing here, and you can absolutely seek out a professional help with this, is you want to release how traumatic this health scare was in your system. Because clearly the body is still not feeling safe. There's a feeling of like, maybe I don't trust my body. Maybe my body betrayed me. Maybe there was a violation depending on what the health scare was. Like you feel like you went to the doctors, maybe there was a procedure done. Like there was something that maybe your body doesn't feel safe. It felt violated. It felt doesn't trust you. You don't trust your body. There's a relationship to repair here. And the reason I'm sensing trauma is because you're saying that you're noticing every symptom and you're so worried of something like this happening again. So there's something that needs to be released around this health scare that will help bring more relief to not hyper-focusing and looking for things to worry about. So what happens is that when we have a trauma, it's like, because the emotions of the experience were too intense for our bodies to actually process in the moment, our mind can't catalog it. You can't file it away properly in the past. And because it was too emotionally overwhelming, the mind basically is like, okay, great. I don't know where to put this file, so I'm just going to leave it out. And when our brain doesn't code a memory as happening in a certain time and space, filed it away to a time and space, then anything in our current reality that touches or rhymes or tastes like or has a flavor like, or anything that feels a little similar to that situation, like other symptoms, is going to bring it back as if it's happening again. It's going to feel like a memory on loop. Like it's active, it's still alive, it's still like present time. It's gonna activate your whole system like it's happening right now, again and again and again. And so the trauma release technique that I do helps you code it properly into the time and space of the past. And by allowing your brain to code it and file it away properly, it no longer gets hooked into by things that remind you of that situation. So I would work with a professional to release the trauma around your health scare. Stacy asks, following my intuition still throws me a bit, as I have had so many times in the past where this did not work out for me. I realize this was due to former beliefs that did not serve me. Yet still, it's sometimes hard to trust my gut and to trust life in general, especially when these things often go against society's version of normal. Yeah, this is another one of those, it's a journey. Like I am still learning how quickly to trust my intuition. Like I've been able to trust my intuition when it feels like there's a reason I have data that would tell me this. But there's also been moments where I had instantaneous knowing that I shouldn't know. Like a silly example was last week, my partner was like, how old do you think our friend is? So-and-so. And I was like, I don't know, like 47. And he was like, how'd you know that? Like, that's exactly how old he is. And I was like, I don't know. It just dropped in, right? And this friend looks a lot younger than that. So I think that's why that's why our friend was surprising with his age, because he doesn't look 47. So anyway, this is a small example, but it's like these instantaneous moments. Or like another silly example was that I was at dinner with a girlfriend who was like, oh, I found this organic wine in Portugal. It's amazing. It's the best. You have to try it. It's so incredible. And I was like, oh, will you send me the name? And she hadn't sent me the name yet, but I happened to find myself in an organic food store the next day. And I was like, oh, I really wish I knew the name of this wine because I want to buy one. And I started scanning the shelves and I'm like, something just like clicked where I was like, oh, it's this wine. But my brain went, why do you think it's that wine? You have no reason to think it's that wine. Don't buy it. Like you're probably going to pick the wrong one. And then eventually my friend gets back to me and of course it was that wine. So I'm bringing this up because our intuition is going to keep honing itself and getting sharper and getting like more astute. And our only job is that we continue to learn to trust it. So it's not like this black and white, like on, off, my intuition's always right or it's off, but it's like, can I get to a place where even if my brain feels like I have no reason to believe this, but some reason I feel like I have an answer, can I just go with that when it comes to low risk things like buying a bottle of 10-year-old wine? That was the price of the wine. Or can I use that in a low risk situation of guessing my friend's age? You know, like try it with things that are lower risk, right? Versus like, oh, I have this big intuition that is really actually puts a lot of lives at danger, or like may actually have a really high stakes impact. Or maybe it's a huge financial intuition that's going to either lead to hundreds of thousands or loss of hundreds of thousands or millions, et cetera. So I would really just find these little places where you can test it out and build that trust. Because for me, for instance, again, every day my intuition's getting stronger, and every day I need to catch up with how much I trust it, how much I listen to it, how loud it needs to get before I hear it. You know, there's something I'm figuring out right now, which is around meat. Like, does my body actually want to eat meat? And I grew up loving meat. I'm like, you know, the girl who always ordered a steak if it was on a menu. Like, I loved eating a good steak. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but I was like the girl when all the other girls were eating salads that was choosing to have a steak ever since I was like a teenager. Anywhere I was at, like even if it was a $13 steak, I like wanted the steak. And now I'm hearing louder and louder and louder, like I need to stop eating meat. And this is not about, you know, I'm not going to get into like why one should make a choice or the other. I'm just bringing this up as like, this is an intuitive hit that I've gotten so many times. It's been years now that I've been getting this hit. And every time it hits me, I kind of negotiate a little bit of like, well, you mean if it's like organic, farm raised, then it's okay, right? Or like, I'm just gonna eat a lot less meat. Like I'm just gonna cut it out so it's only like maybe 10% of the time I'll have some meat. And every time I get it, I kind of just like negotiate and get a little bit better at it, but not fully, you know, listening to it. And so, yeah, I just wanna tell you that this is a journey of developing a relationship with yourself, with your inner voice, and it's not going to sound normal to society. Like a lot of the things that I'm sharing here with you today, like I wouldn't just drop onto, you know, like the public per se, right? Because there's a lot of things with what I'm saying that don't sound normal, that don't make sense, that don't like pass your logical mind, right? I think logic is overrated in my world. But anyway, I think that this is a journey of a lifetime, and I am still learning. Where can I get faster at listening, and where can I get deeper in trusting? So that it doesn't have to get so loud. And it's so fun to be rewarded in those like little moments when there's nothing on the line, like guessing someone's age and just realizing like, wow, like I may be able to access things in my mind or in the collective consciousness or in, you know, this world or this simulation. Like I'm able to tap into things that don't make sense to my logical mind, and that's fun, right? So hope that answers your question, Stacy. Sujin asks, as much as I have widened my understanding towards my husband, my desire to live fully is much higher as well. He is slowly changing, however, way too slow. What is your advice? Any secret in how I can help him open up? Yeah. I often get this question of like, can you work with my partner? I'm going to see a couples therapist because my partner needs it. You know, there's this often this sense of like, I'm doing this work, but my partner's behind. And it's not a like one size answer fits all. I mean, none of these answers are, but specifically, I don't know the ins and outs of your relationship. So it's going to be really hard for me to say like what you should do. But I will say that it's very common that within a partnership that one person may be more drawn to this work or more interested, more curious, more open to this work. One person may be growing and accelerating their growth faster than the other. And it can feel frustrating, you know, depending on how, where that person is at, the other person's at with their openness to this work. You need to decide for yourself if this is a deal breaker. It's really important. This question really has nothing to do with him. This has everything to do with you getting really clear with yourself. What are your boundaries? What are your requests? What are the things that are absolute must-haves in a relationship? Like, is it a deal breaker to you if he's not willing to go see a couples therapist together? if he's not willing to work on improving a relationship, is that a deal breaker for you? And the answer may not be the same for everyone. You know, I have clients at different phases in their journeys. I have some clients who, when they first found me, the answer was, it's fine, I can tolerate it, we can do it, you know? And then after a few years of this work, they're like, I can't tolerate it, we're gonna have to separate, you know? Anyway, you can be all over the spectrum on this answer, but it's really about you and you and you, and really just your decision here. And like, can you take responsibility and deal with the consequences that come with either staying or leaving? The consequences would be, I accept that this is how my husband is, so I'm going to stop making him wrong, and I'm going to do my best, my own inner work, to accept him where he's at, because I am choosing to stay knowing this about him. I'm choosing to stay knowing that he may not ever be into this work. I'm choosing to stay even though he's not working on our relationship. That's your ownership. That's your responsibility. That's you making that choice. Similarly, if you choose to leave, there may be, you know, consequences with your children. There may be consequences for you. You know, it might be very hard. I don't know what your situation is financially, if it's clean to separate. I don't know what that looks like. But again, it's, can I take ownership of the consequences involved in making this decision? But knowing that either way, you are honoring yourself, you are choosing, you are deciding, you are responsible. Like, you are self-empowered to make this decision for you. So yeah, it's really not how can I get him to open up, but how can you communicate with him from a place of compassion and speaking up and asking for what you want without making him wrong, and then being able to hold your line, right? Hold your standard. So often people tell me, like, I drew a boundary, but it wasn't honored. They didn't listen to my boundary. They didn't respect my boundary. And I just want to remind you that, like, it's your responsibility to honor your own boundary, your responsibility to hold your boundary. If you say this is a deal breaker and you're not met and you choose to stay, well, you're not honoring your boundary. You're teaching the other person that they don't actually have to listen to. There are no consequences. You said it was a deal breaker, but it's not actually a deal breaker, right? So it's only your job to hold your own boundaries. Mary Ann asks, I think at the moment I'm quite torn with my current job. It's a contracted position as an addiction recovery coach. Okay, there's a lot of detail here. It costs a lot to do the training program. You've made an effort. It's affecting your health. You're not feeling heard. Okay, your question is, do I leave this position and spend my time searching for where my heart sings? I'm a new coach, only 2 years in, and this has got me to a point of doubting myself and my abilities. I suppose I'm worried about not continuing to get experience as a coach and being completely without some source of income, albeit small. Okay. So again, I don't know your exact situation, but I would say that, one, you need to feel safe. So financially, even though it's a small amount of income, if you're relying on this amount of income to feel safe, it really changes my answer to this question. If you are not relying on this job to feel secure financially, it's more like old programming that says that I need to not be earning money, even if it's a short period of time. I can't go without earning money because I don't feel safe, even though I technically, literally am safe because maybe there's another source of income. I would answer this question very differently. So assuming that you said it's a small amount of income, so I'm going to assume that you're not relying on this income to feel secure, to feel safe, to have the bare needs met of food, safety, and shelter, then I would, one, try speaking up for yourself, because usually when I hear a question like this that's like, should I just get out? It's usually from someone who feels more comfortable leaving a situation when there's conflict versus speaking up and advocating for themselves and learning world-class communication. So this is something that I work on with my clients as a leadership advisor, is like, how can you communicate in a way where you can express yourself in a way that lands so the other person doesn't feel defensive, and while also honoring your requests, your needs, your asks, your boundaries. And so the first thing I would recommend is, can you speak up? Can you say, you know, in your own words, something along the lines of like, I love the mission of this company. I love, you know, working here. Like, there's something so important to me about this, you said addictions recovery program. Like, this is so important to me. This work is so important to me. Here are some things that are a struggle for me right now, you know, and then name, you know, why you're not feeling heard, what's frustrating, maybe the pay, like whatever it is. first see if you can communicate with this company. And if you still feel unmet after expressing yourself and standing in your truth, and this is really standing in your power, I think being able to express ourselves, to walk through the uncomfortable emotions and not be in a triggered state as we speak up and express what we need is really world-class leadership. And so start there. And then if you're still not met, I would say that you, again, similar to the last answer, you're responsible for you. You decide, you choose. Like, you get to decide what you tolerate and what you don't. And it sounds like if this isn't a source of income that is necessary for you, then I would start transitioning and I would start creating a job that does make your heart sing. But I also would check, similar to my prior answer, of like, what are my limiting beliefs here? Like, what are the thoughts here? Because you're saying things like, I'm getting to the point of doubting myself and my abilities. I'm worried about not getting experience as a coach, right? So write out all the thoughts that are coming up for you for why you're choosing to stay. So again, same answer, different question. Write out, I am leaving this job and creating my dream career as a coach. And then write that affirmation out 30 times. And then every time you come up with a doubt, like, but I need to get experience, but what if I'm not good at this? What if, all those what ifs, write them on the other side. And then go through systematically and clean up every thought and feeling that you have. Because once you clean them up, you're gonna notice that resistance removed and you'll have more flow around this question. Yoon Young asks, once I became more aware of my contractions, I began to develop a list of things that I want to change, such as my name, the city that I'm living in. But these new desires for change are often met with reservations like, will these adjustments actually alter anything, or am I trying to escape deeper issues that I'm not yet aware of? How can I become more acutely aware of what I really want and gain the confidence and wisdom to follow through with decisive actions to further expand and grow? This is a next level question, because the self-awareness here of like, do I really need to change my circumstances to be happier? Or is there a way to be happy and then my circumstances will just change because who I am, who I'm becoming has changed? And I think that you're getting there kind of in your own question, that you're realizing that in your ask. You're not wrong or right if you do it either way. I think that there's something so powerful about changing our environments, like becoming untethered, creating a new space, creating a new environment. It's like you're able to see what comes through that's new, essentially. Sometimes when we get into our routines, we get into our subconscious autopilot version of ourselves where it's like, this is where I live, and this is where I work out, and this is where I eat, and this is where I get my coffee, and I don't have to think throughout my day. And then as soon as you go into a new city, you don't have all your basic routines done. You don't have your go-to places done. So you're actually less in autopilot and you're more conscious as you move through your day. And when you're more conscious and you move through your day, there's an opportunity to create new rituals, new routines, new things that light you up. You'll start to notice like a freshness and an aliveness to life because you're not on autopilot anymore. So these aren't mutually exclusive. Like, you can work on yourself and do the deeper excavating while also deciding to change your name and have a change of environment. But I think you're right on to know that it's not a silver bullet solution. Like, changing your environment, changing your name is not going to make everything better unless, again, like, it can be quite easy and refreshing to switch it up when you have a new environment. So yeah, I wouldn't say that you're wrong or right to do it either way. And I love the awareness here of there's always something deeper to look at as well. So in addition to moving, are we just chasing expansion and avoiding contraction, or are we doing both? And my life is a duality of walking with both. Like, I have beautiful days where I'm like, this is incredible. I wake up and I'm like, I cannot believe this is my life. And then I have other days where I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I like so depressed and moody and I can't even explain it? Like, what's going on? And then I'm like Eeyore, from Winnie the Pooh. I feel like Eeyore for like a whole day, but that's life. Like, I know that my capacity to feel the highs is completely proportional to my ability to feel the lows. So it's like, if I don't let myself go to those days when I don't feel great, then I also don't get to have those days where I'm like, oh my God, holy shit, this is my life, So it's in that range, in the up and the down, that we can hold the capacity to be with the full range of life, to be with all 88 keys. Henrik asks, could you tell us about some of the coaches, mentors, or authors that you're following, and if you have any recommendations for other books? Yeah. This is a very long list because I've now worked with 25 coaches, and I mean literally worked with in terms of like one-on-one or like an intimate group setting, not like I dropped in for someone's weekend retreat or I took someone's meditation workshop. Like these are coaches I spent a good deal of time with. So there are a lot, but I will say that the current books that I am reading and I love are Journey of Souls, which is about past life regressions. And then there's another book that I love called Conversations with God. And sorry, I don't know the authors of these books, but I'm just going to give you a couple more from my list here. So I really love Body Keeps Score. I really enjoy money books. So like Busting Loose from the Money Game. That was a great one. And then I also love the book called Real Magic. Another great one. So anyway, if you can't find any of these, like let me know and I can look up the authors, but that is some of the books that I've been currently listening to. Eunice asks, can you share any practices from your own experience and traditions that you've studied that might help me honor my past relationships, or even some tips on how to manage contraction in the moment when going through loss or grief? Yeah, so I love the simple ritual of writing down grievances or things I need to forgive and then burning it. So I do this around, full moons, new moons. I do this around certain rituals, certain times of the year, certain portals opening or closing. Like there's so many things that I get to do because it's just fun. I'm not saying that you have to believe any of this, but it's just fun for me. It's expansive for me, which is why I choose to do it. And so one of the things that I love to do is, especially around like the end of a year, new year, lunar calendar or Western calendar, is I'll write out all the things that I notice I need to forgive people for. So if their name comes to my mind, I write it down. I don't care how small. I don't care. My brain goes like, really? You're holding on to that thing? Like that's super petty. I have no judgment. If it comes up in my brain, it makes it onto the list. So I write out, and sometimes they're really old. They're like years ago. Sometimes they're recent. Sometimes it's like, this random person, like a landlord or some situation like that. It could be anyone. And I write down like anyone that creates contraction in my system. I write it down, and I'll just say like a sentence like, I forgive you for, and I write it down. And I do that for every person that comes up. And then when I finish that list, I get to my list, which is my own forgivenesses of myself. And so I will make an even longer list of things I forgive myself for. And this is a very emotional process. I forgive myself for it. And then when I'm done and I can't think of anything else, I say, is there anything else more I can forgive myself for? And I do that. And I learned this from one of my mentors who does this around the new year. And I did that for myself this year, and I burned it after, and it was so beautiful to get to release it. You can also like let it go into the ocean. You can bury it, whatever you choose to do, whatever feels expansive for you. That's how you get rid of it. For me, I love to burn it. There's something really beautiful and ritualistic and so ancient and primal about like a bonfire or just having a fire. So that is how I honor letting go, releasing, honoring past relationships, releasing any resistances. And I think this email, you actually said it was about losing a loved one. So I will also say that talking to them, writing to them, journaling to them, speaking to them, just like they're here in the room with you listening, grieving, crying, letting them know how much you miss them. Like I actually recently learned very sad news of someone that I didn't know well, but who had passed away and very young. And it's actually not even a common occurrence for me, but I just started crying, and I found myself talking to his spirit and just like saying things about like, even though I don't know him well, it was just like, I just want you to know that this is how you impacted me. And that short trip in that group setting, like these are the things I took away from our conversation, and these are the beautiful moments and memories that I have of you. And I just really hope that your soul can return in peace and move on, and And so it is having that kind of relationship. And also, I believe another powerful ritual tradition that you can do is to have a day in honor of this person. So what were their favorite things to do? So their favorite things to eat, if they love to hike, if they love to do sports, like whatever it is, like make a full packed itinerary of their favorite things, go to their favorite places, and really like hold that as like, this is honoring this person today. And invite in people to join you, like maybe relatives of yours, friends of yours, people who also knew this person. Like you can decide to claim the day together and like choose like, okay, on this day, we're all going to do this in memory. And I just got chills saying that. So I hope that helps. There are just 2 more here. What are your favorite energy healing bodywork somatic modalities for psychedelic integration? Another great question. I'm actually leading a retreat here in Portugal for a group of 8. And something that I like to do is after the experience and when we integrate, there's an opportunity to I'll start here. Before we go into the journey, I like to reflect on like, what is the intention for this journey? I have a whole ritual for how we infuse the medicine with this intention. And we write out like, here is like the breakthrough, like the one thing that if this change would lead to like 100 changes in my life. And you write that out. And then you write out, here are the challenges and the roadblocks that get in the way of that being true for me right now. And you have that all written down. And then after the medicine journey, I think it's a beautiful experience to actually look back at your list. And 100% of the time, people look at their list and they're just like, oh my gosh, none of those challenges feel true anymore. Like it's done. Like it's already on its way to me. This intention that I have, or it's already here, is sort of the feeling. And what we do, again, I love fire rituals. I love ceremony. We will create a fire and we will release and burn all the things that we had written, released, or let go back into the ocean, let go back into the soil. And then aside from that, I think journaling, the experience is really beautiful. But not feeling too much pressure to capture everything, because I think that sometimes we don't allow the memory to really just sort of land and be treasured and cherished, because we're trying too quickly to start explaining and talking about the experience. And the moment we put words to something, it's almost like it takes an experience and limits it down to the words that we can use to describe it. So I wouldn't rush this process, but I would even maybe record yourself is something beautiful as part of integration. Is after the journey, put on your audio, your iPhone audio, and just record everything that you want to say, everything at all that comes through, even when you're still in that altered state. And this is something that you can re-listen to later, and then you can journal from and transcribe later. But I wouldn't force yourself to immediately limit the experience down to words on paper immediately after. I personally, whenever I do anything ritualistic, I love to take a bath after, because there's something really beautiful about being immersed in your own essence, in your own energetic field, and you're kind of marinating in yourself. And there's something really intelligent about water as well. If you've read any of like EMO's The Intelligence of Water book, that's another great recommendation. He's the one that developed or discovered that phenomenon where when you talk to certain plants and say positive affirmations, the plants are thriving. And then when you bully the plant, it actually dies. He really studies the power and intelligence of water. So I like to do my gratitude practice while I'm in a hot bath. I enjoy listening to expansive sounding music. That's another recommendation, is I like to create soundtracks of music that's very related to the breakthroughs that my client had. So whatever they went through, whether it was inner child work, I will create a playlist that is very supportive of that specific journey and breakthrough. And then anchoring in that experience to the music so that you can continue maybe for a week or a few weeks or whenever you choose to return to it. Listen to that playlist, and it's almost like it's reactivating what was programmed into you through the song, through the music. All right, and the final question here is, how can we start to teach our children to live in expansion? The world has contraction rules, and they're learned since we were almost babies. How can we start to make a difference with the upcoming generations? I would love to work on this with my community. This is a beautiful, heart-led question, and I think one of the things that we can do is with parenting, teaching parents like how to support children's unique expression, to support what lights them up, to support allowing for things to not look normal or to be the average or to be too caught up in like wanting them to converge to what schooling systems or tests are saying, or what are the things that we're needing to make sure that our kid is normal across, and really allowing there to be space for their unique individual outlier expression, the thing that they like and love that maybe is not the usual thing that kids are super into, and just really supporting this unique expression from a very young age, I think is going to be really supportive. The other thing that I think parents can do and be educated on doing is to not have such absolute black and whites when it comes to like statements, right? That we often say as parents, like, those aren't my rules, or not under my roof, or like, that's not okay. Is really to be mindful, catching ourselves out of convenience or from a lack of patience when we say things like, we can't afford that, or, you know, bad, or whatever it is, like really finding those moments where we are being too rigid with our judgments, too rigid with what is right and wrong in those moments, and instead say something like, well, mom prefers it this way, or dad prefers it this way. And one day when you have your own home, or you have your own car, whatever it is, that you can make your own decisions, your own choices around this, right? But this is our rule currently. Or if it's financial, like, right now we can't afford this, but maybe later we can, right? So just look for, where are you creating statements that start to sound like, this is the truth. This is the capital T truth. So I think the more we can be light about what we're passing on and teaching our children, the better. And there's an expression that I really love. I forget where I heard it, but I think I read it on Instagram, and it sounded like something like, we don't really have to worry about passing on and teaching our kids things that we need them to know. The thing we should really watch as parents is making sure we're not passing on our limiting beliefs to our children. So that is what I would say for that question. All right, well, thank you so much for tuning in. This was incredible. I wish you were all here live, but this will have to do, and I hope this is supportive of all of you. And let me know if you have any questions. If any of you feel called to work with me, please reach out. I would love to support you. Mwah. Thank you.